Good Tuesday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and thank you for joining us on the Jerry and Jerry Show, an hour talk show that highlights, spotlights, and showcases the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe. He just concluded his 51st straight ACC basketball tournament. His website, jerryratcliffe.com, is exploding with web traffic, and that usually happens when you officially hire a new head basketball coach, and that's what happened at the John Paul Jones Arena, a press conference that kind of, dotted the I's and crossed the T's, if you may. Ryan Odom slips and slides down Interstate 64. He comes to Charlottesville, and in a sharp suit, ladies and gentlemen, wearing a UVA tie with the creme de la creme of Virginia basketball in attendance, Ryan Odom just absolutely, I think, hit a grand slam with his press conference. He was telling stories of his time growing up from 3rd grade to 9th grade at U-Hall. His father, Dave Odom, an assistant coach under Terry Holland. He was talking about ball boying and kind of peeking into the huddle of Dean Smith in North Carolina, how he lived 2 doors down from Terry Holland, and how his father, Dave, didn't like that the house had no air condition, so they had to get window units because Dave got hot in the Charlottesville summer, and how he had spend the nighters at Jim Larinaga's house. And Coach Larinaga, an assistant under Terry Holland, would bring in some popcorn and some movies. I mean, it was a trip down memory lane, and I thought a special time for someone who's followed the Virginia program like all of us. We're going to highlight Hootie here. You, the viewer and listener, I see 15 states on the show. If you have a question, put them in the feed, and we'll pass them along to the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer. We give props to Judah Wickower, the Elmer's glue of this team.
He's the man.
He is an absolute man. If you can go to the studio camera and welcome, I don't think I've ever seen him wear the U.S. Open quarter zip over here. He's looking quite good over here.
Okay.
Hootie Ratcliffe, good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
You're on the Jumbotron. You get the first question of the media. The first question was Jeff White, but he works for the athletic department. First question from the media was for you. Scatter shooting, we start open-ended. What'd you make of the press conference yesterday?
I agree with you. I think he hit a home run that he said all the right things, had great answers to every question, and he got some tough questions. A myriad of topics, and he handled them all smoothly and intelligently and eloquently, and I thought I don't think he could have done any better, really. I thought it was a perfect press conference, and it was great to see.
Who'd you see? Give us the who's who of who you saw.
Well, I didn't get to see everybody, obviously, because I was working and trying to get some interviews after, but I saw a lot of former Virginia players there. Ricky Stokes, Ralph Sampson, Jimmy Miller, Jeff Jones. Of course, Craig Littlepage was there.
Wally was there.
Wally Walker, Barry Parkhill. I'm sure I'm probably leaving somebody out, but there were tons of people. I talked to Griff Aldrich. I talked to Dave Odom and his wife, who reads my website, which if she reads it, you guys should read it.
Ryan Odom, when your name was highlighted, that you were going to ask a question, he perked up, knew exactly who you were, knew exactly your brand, your media, everything.
Yeah, he said, "Oh, hey."
Yeah.
And his brother Lane was there. I talked to him. Gosh, so many people from the past. Sports Information Director Rich Murray and his wife, lovely wife, Joe.
Rich, great guy.
Yeah.
Robert Hardy was there.
Joe Geek, Sally, his wife.
Joe was there.
Yeah.
Love Joe
and
Geek.
his wife, Sally.
Cowboy boots.
Cowboy hat, cowboy boots. Some things never change.
That's right.
Just so many former Virginia sports connected people, and it was glorious to see them all. It was like a reunion. It was fun.
It was fun to watch. It was fun to see you.
Chance Mallory was there.
I was going to ask you. Fun to see you on the Jumbotron. Judah Wickower, we got a lot of headlines that we're going to have to rotate on screen as Hootie and I hop around here on what was an historic day for Virginia basketball. All right, the Ryan Odom news, I think it's fantastic. I wish him nothing but the best. This was a secret that was out there.
Not a very well kept
Not
secret.
a very well kept secret. Not a very well kept secret. And maybe it had to be out there. And maybe that's the first question. Maybe the secret had to be out there to get a recommitment from Chance Mallory, Judah. Chance Mallory, headline on screen. Did the secret have to be out there to get Chance Mallory to stay here in Charlottesville?
Well, I think it certainly was a key in convincing Chance Mallory to change his mind and recommit. Talking to his coach, Damon Altizer, after his press conference last Saturday over at St. Anne's, Damon said, I was openly a BYU fan last Thursday, hoping that VCU would lose so that Ryan Odom would be available to so something would happen because
I think every Virginia fan wanted VCU to lose.
yeah,
Every VCU fan.
not because it's VCU, but
Right.
just because of the timing.
Because of this.
Because if they had kept winning and he couldn't accept the job unless they were doing something behind the scenes, Chance had to make a decision. And, well, he didn't have to, but he had set his mind to. So I got the idea from Damon that had that drug on that, and Chance didn't know who the coach was going to be. He might have gone elsewhere, even though he didn't want to go elsewhere.
Right, he wanted to stay in Charlottesville. A couple interesting things came from the Chance Mallory commitment. First, he offered his commitment to not only the team, but the commitment to Charlottesville as a city.
Yep.
And as a community.
He was very proud of Charlottesville.
Very proud of Charlottesville. And I, as a fan, and someone who, under you, when I worked for the Daily Progress for you sent me all the time to cover St. Anne's Belfield.
Mm-hmm.
An athletic department with legacy and lineage and talent and a Hall of Fame that would make a lot of schools jealous. And for a young man who is a hop, skip, and a jump literally from the John Paul Jones Arena where he's playing basketball.
Absolutely.
I mean, he could walk there to stay in Charlottesville. That is a big-time story. And I also want to highlight this because I hope the viewers and listeners that gave me some friction and some resistance because I've questioned some of the decisions that Carla Williams has made, the athletic director. Chance Mallory highlighted that athletic director Carla Williams was an important aspect of his commitment or recommitment to UVA, Hootie.
Yeah, you give her props for keeping him at bay and trying to keep him interested in the program. She did an excellent job with that, and I'm not afraid to say that. She's also done a good job in trying to raise the, and we'll talk about this later, but the NIL funds over there, just making the commitment or convincing the powers that be to make a commitment and turning Barry Parkhill loose to raise the money. And he's done an incredible job bringing in funds for the NIL. But, yeah, she did a great job. I don't know if babysitting is the right word, but she did a good job of recruiting and keeping Chance in the fold. And I'm sure that Chance's parents, Joe and Dory, were very appreciative of that.
Renee Pettiford, she's one of our top fans on the program. She says she loves Ryan Odom. She loves Carla Williams. She says he's from my hometown of Durham. She's so happy that Chance committed to Virginia, recommitted. John Allison watching the program. He's got a comment. I like the Ryan Odom pick. His first recruiting pickup will be fun to watch him build the rest of the roster and staff. He highlights Chance Mallory. I mean, you could build a program around Chance Mallory.
Absolutely.
I mean, this guy, especially the style of play that Odom likes to play. Why don't we start open-ended with Chance Mallory? The question in today's era, and I don't think it's uncouth to ask the question or have the conversation. How much is a guy like Chance Mallory making? Anthony Calandra, $800K to quarterback a subpar Virginia football team in front of an empty stadium. Chance Mallory's got to be making more than that.
I mean, you would think so. We're not privy to that information, but if Anthony Calandra was worth $800,000. Certainly, Chance Mallory's worth more than that.
Right.
And I don't know how they determine those figures. I'm going to have to ask somebody, some of the coaches or people over there, how you evaluate that. But I would say he's being paid or rewarded handsomely, and should be under today's standards.
He highlighted Chance Mallory after making his announcement that he loved the style of play that Ryan Odom is going to roll out. He said it's going to be a lot of pressing, a lot of up-tempo, a lot of three-point shooting, a lot of little guard play.
Yeah.
Chance Mallory's words. Obviously words that he's heard from Coach Odom. How does that style of play differ? And I think I know your answer for the current style of play. And then a better part question would be, how does that style of play, is it conducive with the current roster?
Yeah, well, those are good points. And my good friend Scott German said that even though Ryan Odom plays a much faster pace and presses defensively, if you look at the number of possessions, and I haven't done this, but Scott did, there's not that many more possessions by VCU than there was by Virginia, but it's just the style of play. Ryan explained yesterday how when he was a player at Hampton Sydney under Tony Shavers, who went on to coach at other schools.
William & Mary, Virginia legend in basketball.
Yeah, really good coach, who learned under Dean Smith and fell in love with fast-paced basketball, and that's still what Carolina plays. But it will be a much faster pace, and there will be pressing on defense, and which leads and bleeds into the next question that you had about the current roster. You have to ask if some of these guys can play that style of basketball. And that may be a determining factor on whether or not they stay or transfer, or even whether Ryan Odom wants them to stay or not. He and Aldrich, Kyle Guy, Isaiah, Chase Coleman, and Mike Curtis, the strength coach, worked those guys out yesterday a couple hours before the press conference in the practice gym at JPJ. So he wanted to get a close-up look at those players and see what they're made of, and that's got to be a factor into whether their decisions and his decisions on who stays and who goes.
Jeremy Wilson's watching in Tennessee, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Wilson? He asked this question: will Tony Bennett play any role with this program? It's the torch has been passed. This is not a Tony Bennett program anymore. Tony Bennett helped build the brand, and that brand is being utilized to raise NIL funds. And all of us are waxing nostalgic of what the program did, in particular 2019, a national championship. And that brand equity is leveraged by Park Hill and his staff to raise money to pay these players. He's the Hall of Famer. I am the guy that's lucky to sit next to him here. From my standpoint, it seems that the torch has been very well passed to Ryan Odom. And he even acknowledged this in the press conference. I thought his answer was great. He said, I embrace the pressure of following Tony Bennett.
Yeah. And those
are big words.
That's big because usually the guy who follows a legend, it's tough to live up to that kind of reputation. But he did embrace it, and he does love the challenge. To answer his question, I don't think Tony Bennett will have much to do with the program, actually. He'll always be welcome, obviously, over at JPJ and to practices or games, or to drop by and see Ryan and his staff or watch practices or whatever. I'm certainly, he's always welcome with open arms. But as far as any kind of interaction with the program in terms of suggestions or planning or any of that stuff, I seriously doubt that would happen. I really don't see that happening. Most coaches once they retire, they kind of keep an arm's length away, and they don't want to seem like someone hovering over the new guy's shoulder, and I'm sure the new coaches always appreciate that. I mean, there's been a lot of former coaches who have lived here over the years, and they just kind of keep their distance.
Questions coming in here. Mr. Allison, let us know where you're watching the show from. We'll mention it on air. Every Wahoo wants to know, does any of the coaching staff convey? Does Isaiah Wilkins convey? Does Chase Coleman convey? Does Kyle Guy convey? Heck, does Jason Williford, one of the most loyal guys in Virginia basketball history, a friend of the show, does Jason Williford convey?
Great guy.
A great guy. This question was asked, I believe, by David Teal, and Ryan had kind of sidestepped that answer a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned that he has kept his staff together from UMBC to Utah State to VCU, and he said he would like to keep them together for here. Now, certainly, you can have some larger staffs now than you used to be able to have. He said that when he came to VCU, he infused a couple of coaches from there with his staff, and it worked out very well, and that he would like to do the same thing here. But
he's going to have more staff than players.
Yeah, how many? Well, sometimes you look down at Virginia's bench, and there's more guys with suits on than there are uniforms on. But how many from the Virginia fold might be kept? There's no indication of that yet, but I'm sure somebody will be. I don't know how many, and that's going to be something he has to determine. I don't know how many vacancies he might have.
The transfer portal is red hot, and it's tough.
It's over 500 in the very first day.
It's bananas right now, and more coming. This is just the first wave, the portal of folks that want to be kind of knocking on the door first. But the portal, as it's open, only gets more people into the pool, if you may. For Virginia basketball, you got 6 guys. Blake Buchanan and Day-Day Ames last week. Yesterday, 4 more jumped into the portal swimming pool. And the one that's stinging the fan base the most is Isaac McKneely. Now, he has left a back door to return to UVA. We'll get to that here. But we got Blake Buchanan, Day-Day Ames, Isaac McKneely, Andrew Rohde, TJ Power, Anthony Robinson. I love Anthony Robinson. See so much upside with an NBA body with Anthony Robinson. I mean, that's a man playing college basketball right there. 6 guys in the portal. Open-ended question to start. Where do you want to go, Hootie?
Well, Ryan Odom has to recruit all over again to try to retain who he would like to keep off of that roster, and he may be perfectly fine with some of these guys. Some of these guys leaving because, again, whether or not they fit his style of play. He mentioned yesterday it's hard to play 30 minutes of basketball in his constantly moving, fast-paced offense and defense. Some of these guys might not be able to do that.
You know what's really interesting in the portal? Day-Day Ames seems to fit his style of play.
Yes, he does.
And Day-Day Ames, a lot of people were throwing shade on Day-Day. I'm not happy with some of the fan base that is literally saying good riddance to some of these players. I mean, these are like, you have a son, I have a son, I have 2 sons. I mean, if it was me as a father and my kids on a team and grown adults are throwing this kind of nastiness and they're justifying the nastiness to these players by saying good riddance, we don't need stuff like that. Oh, they're paid. Now we can say this to them. That ain't right. Not right in my book.
Yeah, they're still kids. And, I think Day-Day really, once he finally fell into the role that he was comfortable and familiar with, was an effective scorer. I mean, the last 10, 12 games of the season, he was averaging around 15 points a game and making a high percentage of shots and doing everything that we thought he would do when he first got here. And it just took a while for that to happen. I think next year he's going to be a solid scorer for somebody. If it's not Virginia, it'll be somebody else. But I agree. I think he would be a really good fit into Ryan Odom's style of play. McKneely, I know he's a fan favorite.
His style really does not fit Odom's style.
It'll be harder for him.
Yeah.
I think he could make the transition, but it'll be harder. He does this past year. He's gotten to the point where he runs constantly to get open and coming off screens. I think he could make it. I'd like to see him finish out his career here, but
Same.
You and I talked about it, I think, on last week's show, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, that, you know, if he's not going to make it into the NBA, he might decide to go for a big paycheck somewhere.
And I can't blame him for that.
NIL-wise.
Yeah, guys, love to see Isaac McKneely return for his 4th year.
Oh, I would too. He's a great kid and from a great family, and I would love to see him return for one more year.
Could we fault a young man who has 1 year of college eligibility left to chase a $1 million, $2 million payday?
Maybe more than that.
Maybe more than that. And Isaac McKneely, who's on a blue blood or a top 10, top 15 program, where he's got a point guard or a slasher that can break and collapse defenses, and he just has to stand behind the arc and shoot threes, open threes. I mean, this guy could be an extremely effective scorer.
Well, he's going to have a point guard next year.
He'll have a point guard next year. He'll have a freshman point guard.
Yeah.
Be a freshman point guard in a brand new system with a brand new coach. That's a perfect segue. Is the expectation a rebuild in Ryan Odom's first year?
Well, it depends on how many people end up leaving. And it depends on, it could be a roster rebuild. As you mentioned, there's 6 guys in the portal right now. And all those are pretty much starters, right?
Yeah. And then we're hearing scuttlebutt with Kofi.
Yeah.
Entering the portal.
So you could have your top, at least 7 of your top 8 or 9 players gone.
Tay Murray's exhausted eligibility.
Yeah, for the 3rd year in a row. So it could be another rebuild, but in this day and time, that's not foreign. And I'm sure Odom is well aware of that and well equipped to go out and find the right pieces. There's a lot of people to choose from, and if you've got the war chest that apparently Virginia now has, you can go out and get who you want.
We got folks sharing some info from friend of the program, Marty Hutloff.
Yeah, Marty's a good guy.
Marty's a good guy. Used to work with Marty. And in a recent a report that he has done, he alludes that Guy is coming back, and that Wilkins is coming back, and Curtis is coming back. Would love to see an official announcement from that. We do know that Odom has...
All great guys.
Yeah. We do know that Odom has kept VCU staff talent in play when he segued over to Richmond. This team is a team that's in transition. Who do you build the program around, and what is the brand identity of this program moving forward? It's not going to be the 5 pillars. It's not going to be a control tempo, win the game in the 50s brand identity. What is the brand identity?
Run. I think that's going to be their identity. I think it's going to be fast-paced basketball and in-your-face defense, full court, and it's going to be very physically demanding to be able to do that. You're going to have some depth, I think, to be able to play that style, because I don't know if anybody can play 30 minutes of basketball like that without getting some breathers. But I think that's definitely going to be their identity. And again, it depends on on who he's able to keep and and wants to keep. There's probably there might be a few guys on there that he knows that can't play in his system, and he's going to have to go out and get people that can play that brand of basketball and play it well, because he said yesterday, we want to be a top 10 program, and you can't do that without top 10 talent, and that's going to take money, and they've got the money and they've got the know-how. They just got to go out and get them.
What do you make, Judah, as we're rotating the Griff Aldrich headline on screen? The Longwood head coach comes to Charlottesville. Griff Aldrich, longtime ties to Ryan Odom, a senior captain at Hampton City under Tony Shaver. Ryan Odom, also a senior captain. Classmates, friends. A guy who has a law degree from Virginia, Griff Aldrich. A guy who went into the private sector for 15, 16 years. Worked as a lawyer, worked as a businessman, recruited out of the private sector by Ryan Odom to go to UMBC with him, where he was in charge of player development. Had tremendous success at UMBC, parlayed that into a head coaching job at Longwood. Now comes to Charlottesville, where he's going to be the associate head coach, Hootie.
Yeah, I had never met Griff, and talked to him yesterday and was very impressed. And I'll write a little bit about this today on the website. I talked to him about how they interact as coaches, and he said, well, I'm actually a lot of people think I'm the quiet one, and that Ryan is the more aggressive guy. He said it's actually the other way around. So Ryan has to calm me down sometimes in a good cop, bad cop kind of scenario. So I think he's going to bring a lot more fire than people might expect. But solid basketball coach. He's done a really good job at Longwood, and very smart guy, well put together. I think it's going to be a nice tandem to lead this program.
What do you make of the news that was fresh to a lot of people, maybe not fresh to you, but fresh to a lot of people, that Virginia this past season had a general manager not only for the men's basketball team, but also the football team and the women's basketball team? Wally Walker, almost in an interim role, was the general manager for the men's team. They also had a GM that was kind of like under the radar, off the record for football, women's basketball. What do you make of that? What do you make of the future of the position?
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. I mean, I always kind of considered Wally as sort of an unofficial GM, and he certainly has the background for that. He was a GM for the Seattle Supersonics and the women's WNBA team out there during his time out in Seattle. And had been president of the club at one time. Has a good, solid business background, very successful businessman, knows hoops, knows people, brilliant guy. And I kind of felt like he was in an unofficial capacity with that to begin with. I think we were all surprised that football had a general manager and we didn't know about it, and it wasn't publicized. And the women's basketball team now has one. I think that was just recent, which I don't think was publicized either. But the intent to hire a general manager now, I don't think it will be Wally. I guess it could be. I'm not sure that's his intent.
Ralph Sampson wants the job. Curtis Staples wants the job.
Yeah, Anthony Solomon would be good at that. There are plenty of candidates out there who would be really good in that role. It just depends on who Wally and Carla feel like would be really good in that position, and somebody that Ryan Odom's comfortable and can work with.
Michael Murphy watching the program. He is watching in Ocala, Florida.
Yeah.
He said,
beautiful place.
Okay. He says, thanks for the show. Great way to keep up with Charlottesville news. He appreciates what we're doing here. He also has questions about the general manager. A lot of questions, in fact, about the general manager right now on the show here. Does the GM need to be a coach? Is the GM more a lawyer or a businessman? Is it more of an agent? Here's an interesting wrinkle. Friend of the program, Elliot Harding, St. Anne's Belfield graduate as well. Played football for John Blake. Now an attorney here in Charlottesville. Enjoy a cold beverage or two with Elliot from time to time. He is actively, and he talks about this on social media, so I'm not speaking out of turn. He's actively working alongside of Kamora Johnson of the women's basketball team, helping create NIL partnership opportunities with her. So we have this landscape where it's not just a general manager is the gatekeeper for the NIL and the funds that come with it, but he or she is the gatekeeper for helping the transfer portal and interacting with third parties. I mean, with McKneely's announcement to enter the transfer portal, the announcement included a mention of his agent and his agent's firm in the transfer portal announcement. I mean, that's the world we're in right now.
Yeah, sadly, but it's true. And that's just part of the world we live in, and it's not going to go away. I think the GM in college is a little different than it is in the NBA or the NFL or whatever. They still have to work closely with the coach, and probably closer in college than in professional sports, because they've got to be on the same page, particularly with the NIL stuff. I don't think you necessarily have to have a coaching background, but it probably helps, or at least a great working knowledge of that sport. And but you also have to have the business side of it too. You can't just be all basketball or all football and not have a good business sense. You have to be multifaceted and have to wear a few different caps. I don't know that the general manager in college will have the authority and power that you do in professional sports. I think you're going to be more under the wing of the head coach than you would be in professional sports. So I think
the general manager, it seems like in college, is going to be a subordinate of the head basketball coach.
I think so.
Where in professional sports, in a lot of ways, the general manager is the boss of the coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, unless it's a very high-profile coach.
Right.
I agree 100% with you there. Talk NIL, talk war chest, talk budget. Carla Williams references to this. I'll applaud her again. She's done a hell of a job with creating a war chest of money.
Yeah, and she said that, I don't know who the discussions were with. I guess the powers that be, and there was a determination made that if Virginia is serious about wanting a top 10 basketball program, then you're going to have to pay for it, and that doesn't come easy. And so some people had to make commitments. And
let them know the Bruce Pearl comment that you said earlier in the program.
Yeah, I heard Bruce Pearl, the Auburn coach, talking on a radio show yesterday that in order to be, in his estimation, in order to be a top 10 basketball program today in college basketball, it requires a $20 million war chest. I don't know how much Virginia has, but Carlos told us yesterday that when they decided to do it, she said she told Barry Parkhill, go get it. And he did. And they made a significant jump in the NIL world for basketball. So apparently they're well armed going into this portal and looking for talent. And Ryan Odom's not afraid. He will go after some really high-quality basketball players. If you want to be a top 10 program, you got to have the talent.
What do they need to rebuild this team? You got a point guard here, but it seems like you need a hell of a lot more depth in the backcourt. And it seems like the front court is a front court with Ryan Odom's style of play that is going to be way more athletic, way more leapers and high risers.
Yeah.
Guys that can prioritize getting baseline to baseline or slashing to the rim as opposed to potential post-up type guys. Where do you want to go with this?
Well, you got to have a point guard, and you do. You got to have a rim protector. And if Anthony Robinson is leaving, which we don't know for sure, he is in the portal, you said, they'll have to go out and find one because there's no others on the roster. You got to have shooters. And right now, from the only guys not in the portal, Sharma is the only one, I think, that's a shooter. So those are three key elements you've got to have, and it would be nice to have a defensive stopper like they're accustomed to having with the Bigmans and Ryan Dunns of the world and those type guys. They don't have any of those on the roster even before, so I'm sure those will be things that he's looking for, but you're right, they're going to have to be athletic leapers and people who can straight line drive to the basket and create and score. They're going to have to. I know he's likes the defensive pressure and turning people over and getting easy baskets that way. But you got to have scorers today to be able to compete on that elite level.
Absolutely. James Watson. We're going to get to his comment. Thank you for watching the program, Mr. Watson. He says, we've talked about this for years, but now that we're evolving on the business side of basketball, the university and the city should really be thinking about hosting a first round of the NCAA tournament. Guaranteed economic blast for the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County, and we definitely have more hotels now than we used to, including the new Darden Hotel. I love the comment from James Watson. I love the vision from James Watson there of hosting a first round here in Charlottesville, Hootie. Why you could answer this question probably more than anyone. Why has that never happened?
Well, the excuse used to be that there weren't enough hotel rooms, and that's certainly not a problem anymore. I guess the number of hotel rooms in this city has probably doubled in the last 8 to 10 years, and so I wouldn't think that would be an issue at all. Shouldn't be any barriers now. You got a 14,000 plus seat arena, public transportation, hotels, restaurants. I don't see anything blocking them from doing it if that's something they would have a desire to do.
Marcus Washington, thank you for watching the program. Hugh Haynes, thank you for watching the program. Viewers and listeners, put your comments in the feed. I will relay them live on air. Would love to see the team, the program host guys, a first round of the NCAA tournament. Sadly, I think it's sad. March Madness is now in the Sweet 16. All the teams in the Sweet 16 from the power conferences. The Cinderella story in this year's dance is zilch, zero, nada.
Well, I wonder if that might be a result of the NIL and transfer portal, and to where the Cinderellas are going to be less and less now because they can't keep up talent-wise, and I have a strong feeling that's probably the case.
100% that's the case. And think about it this way. If you're a mid-major star, at one time if you were a mid-major star, you would stay with the program from freshman to senior.
Right.
And then as a mid-major star, when you're a junior, senior, the Harold Arsenals of the world with Weber State, they would stay and they'd upset North Carolina. And it'd be a memorable... It's still in the March Madness pre- and post-game build-up, Harold Arsenal. Now, if you're Harold Arsenal at Weber State, you're going to go chase $1 million, $2 million in a bag and go play for a power conference team.
And a lot of those guys leave after a really good freshman year.
Right. I mean, you got a kid from Michigan, Scottie Pippen's son, that entered the transfer portal while Michigan's still in the tournament.
Yeah, I know, that's crazy.
Is insanity.
It truly is. I don't know. I just throw my hands up sometimes when I hear this stuff, but it's just what we have to live with now, and I don't know if it's ever going to change or not. It may even get worse instead of better. But yeah, I mean, I can understand the frustration of a mid-major coach because it's so hard for them to compete now, and they don't have the kind of money to retain players. If somebody's waving cash in front of a really good freshman or sophomore or even a senior on their team, it's just puts them behind an 8 ball, and I don't think there's an answer for it.
Another question you have going on when you look at the tournament, goodness gracious, how far has the ACC dropped?
Tremendously.
Besides Duke, I mean, this is a Southeastern Conference Sweet 16.
And we talked
You
a
said
lot about
that.
that all year long, about how the SEC is the new ACC. And,
Yeah.
I noted that in the recent thing with the ACC commissioner, when he talked down in Charlotte, that he was telling the ADs that they need to put a stronger emphasis and more money into basketball because the ACC has fallen so far behind. There's a new infusion of coaches in the league, which with a lot of promising coaches that could make a difference in building those programs back up again. Well, we got at least 4 new coaches right now, right? Florida State, Miami, NC State, and Virginia. I don't know that there'll be any more this year, but probably will be next year.
I mean, Hubert Davis is going to be coaching for his life.
We even mentioned that to Dave Odom yesterday, and he just, he coached in the ACC for so long and grew up in the ACC like we all did, and it breaks his heart to see the ACC.
I don't think the ACC is a top 4 conference in basketball anymore.
No, not right now. They're not, and he said the same thing the commissioner did, that the ACC is going to have to put much more emphasis on basketball, even though football is the engine that drives the train. It's a basketball conference. It's known to be a basketball conference, and they're taking some serious back seats now. And they're, they have 4 teams in the NCAA, and they all lost early, and
Louisville, Clemson, North Carolina, Duke.
Their only hope is that Duke can make some noise. And so, they're going to have to pour more money into it, just like Virginia is planning on doing, and hire some really good young coaches to try to turn things around.
Southeastern Conference, guys, has 7 teams in the Sweet 16.
The most of any conference ever.
Which breaks a record set by the Atlantic Coast Conference 9 years ago.
Yeah.
The Atlantic Coast Conference, guys, has, from my standpoint, not even a top 4 basketball conference anymore, which is disheartening to say. The Southeastern Conference, listen to this statistic for you. The league, the SEC, dominated November and December in a way very few conferences have. The SEC won 88.9% of its games against other conferences and amassed a 58-19 record against the other Power 4 conferences. 58-19, ladies and gentlemen. 14 of the Southeastern Conference's 16 teams received a bid on Selection Sunday.
Yeah.
14 of 16.
That's unbelievable.
That's unbelievable. And now 7 are left in the Sweet 16. The ACC's only hope, and granted it's a fantastic hope, is Cooper Flagg, John Shire, and Duke, who's got 2 guys on the roster that are projected to be top 7, top 10 lottery picks here.
Yeah.
And there's some scuttlebutt that Cooper Flagg, I don't see him doing this, but there's some scuttlebutt that the NIL is so appealing and opportunistic that Cooper Flagg may say no, depending on how the ball bounces in the lottery, to
That's
being the
always
first
a
pick, right, and
big
comes
deal.
back to Duke,
Yeah, I could see that happening.
depending on who gets the first pick.
Right. Because the money will always be there
Right.
unless he gets hurt. But
You go to Lloyd's of London, you get the insurance policy on the body, and then you come back to Duke, make some more money, you're the big man on campus, and you could potentially avoid going to the doldrums of the National Basketball Association if the ball bounces the wrong way in the lottery.
absolutely. and that's been done before.
100%.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again. Who wants to play for a lousy NBA team?
Rob Neal watching the program. He's a diehard college athletics fan. He's putting up a lot of weight in the weight room right now. I've been impressed with what he's throwing up in the weight room, guys. He says not only none in the Sweet 16 for the ACC, but no 13 to 16 seeds won a first round game.
Yeah, that's pretty pathetic.
I mean, Clemson lost to McNeese, right?
Yeah.
Viewers and listeners, maybe I'll ask you this question. Does anyone know where McNeese is located?
I think it's in Louisiana.
You got it right. I knew you would get it right. 100% right. It's Louisiana.
Yeah.
So McNeese is low. They lost to McNeese.
Well, it was Will Wade.
It was Will Wade.
The guy can coach.
Former LSU head coach.
Even though he's
a little bit
of a shady character.
A little bit of a shady guy. Yeah, Will Wade can coach. And
when the FBI is looking into you, something's awry.
The FBI was investigating Will Wade, but he did win. He did get McNeese past Clemson, and it was a loaded team. A lot of people say Louisiana on the feed right there. Shows you the power of doing well in March, what it can do for a school's brand overall.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, sports can be a magnet for students. I remember back when George Welsh was here, and they were attracting the sons and daughters, particularly sons, of a lot of famous celebrities and athletes into the football program and into the school. And he said, we're considered what they now call, and this was a long time ago, a hot school, because we're winning in football. We've got big time players, and people want to be part of that. They want to be part of those festivities and excitement.
Edward Jenkins watching on Hootie's Twitter account over here. He says he's live from San Antonio, Texas. And you can go ahead and put the nameplates on screen, the lower thirds for us.
That's one city I want to go to that I've never been to.
Never been to San Antonio?
Never been to San Antonio. I've been all over Texas, but never San Antonio.
Well, here's, this is, I find, one of the most impressive stats I've heard, that Hootie Ratcliffe has been to 51 straight ACC basketball tournaments. That's impressive. How many states you been to, Hootie?
I'm 7 shy of all 50.
So you've been to 43 states?
Yeah.
That's impressive. How many countries?
Not that many, really. Just Mexico, Japan, and Canada, if you want to call it the 51st state, and Puerto Rico, which is really a U.S. territory. So I haven't traveled around the world like I'd like to.
So being a sports writer, guys, an award-winning sports writer like Hootie, takes you all over the country, 43 states. He asked this question, kind of shifting gears. May not have this answer. I don't have this answer. He says, how come the women's basketball program did not play in any postseason tournaments? Were they not invited, or did they turn down invitations? Edward Jenkins in San Antonio.
I don't know that. I don't know if they had an opportunity. I know they were talking about a potential NIT bid, but I don't know whatever evolved with that. I'm assuming that they just didn't get a bid. Because I would think that she would have probably taken one had they gotten it, just so that they could
get more play.
Get more play for some of the younger players.
Yeah, 100%. Get more run. Comments are coming in, guys. We'll get to as many of these as possible. San Antonio is getting a lot of props on the feed here from the viewers and listeners here. Not just from Hootie, but from other viewers and listeners. This is coming on the feed here. Is Chance going to be the undisputed face of Virginia basketball?
If Isaac McKneely doesn't return, yes, he will be.
I'll ask a follow-up question to the commenter's question.
Unless they bring in some super stud that we don't know about right now.
Even with Isaac McKneely returning, I still think Chance is the face of basketball.
He could be, because he's a local kid.
Yep. And he's got the upside of multiple years in the program, where McKneely's got one left.
Yeah.
And he also has that, it's like the Steph Curry effect. And his game's not like Steph, but why a lot of people love Steph Curry is because Steph Curry's like a 6'1", 6'2", 6'3" guy, right?
Yeah.
He's not like a 7-footer. Like Chance Mallory is a 5'9" point guard. And
he's a really confident kid.
Really confident. But a lot of people can relate to 5'9", where they have a hard time relating to like 6'10", 6'8", 6'9". So I think if and knock on wood here, I'm not even sure if this is wood. This might be knock
Looks
off
like
wood.
wood.
Is it like, maybe it's wood. If the cards play correctly and he has success, we could have one of the bigger stars in potentially program history because of the local ties, because of the fact he plays point guard, and because of the fact he plays with flair.
He's an exciting player, no question about it, and he can shoot the three. They had him shooting NBA threes a couple of years ago, even beyond. So he certainly has the range, and he's been a kid who learned early on that size doesn't matter because he has learned to.
He's got so many different ways of finishing. Floaters and push shots, goes under the rim and uses the rack to protect himself from bigs blocking his shot. He's got a teardrop.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been able to overcome that with angles and et cetera. But so I don't think the size is going to be a problem for him.
Rob Neal says Chance Mallory is absolutely worth the price of admission. Such a fun style of play, and he knows the St. Anne's athletic department and its sports teams extremely well. Appreciate those comments, Rob, on the show. This one is an interesting one. Have you guys talked about what's going to happen to Jason Williford?
Well, we don't know. I'm assuming that he's probably not going to be retained, but I don't know that to be a fact. I don't know what kind of discussions may be going on behind the scenes. I don't know if Jason is in pursuit of another job or what. I think his contract was supposed to run out at the end of this year. I may be wrong on that, but I think I read that somewhere. I think Chris Graham discovered that in one of his FOIAs back a few months ago. But we don't know. All that's kind of behind the curtain, and we're not privy to it until something leaks out.
A natural follow-up from yours truly, Ron Sanchez's future in basketball. What's it look like?
Yeah, well, I imagine, I know from all the trips I've made to the Final Four over the years, they always have the coaches' convention out there, essentially, wherever the Final Four is, and it's a massive job market because guys who don't have a job or are looking for a change show up there and politic with various coaches to see what their possibilities might be. So I imagine, assuming that Jason won't be retained, I imagine. Well, he's been in the game so long, he probably knows a ton of coaches to begin with. He may not even have to go out to wherever the Final Four is, but I imagine a lot of those guys will probably show up at the Final Four and see what might be available.
Ron Sanchez and Jason Williford, we again commend them for their loyalty and commitment to the program.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Coach Sanchez.
Both great quality, high quality guys,
Absolutely.
High character guys, and terrific people.
The type of guys that you want your sons and daughters around. Ron Sanchez and Jason Williford. And as a father of two boys, one of the top compliments I could, bestow on anyone is I want my boys around them. And I don't offer that lightly, guys. 1 hour in, an hour flies when you're with the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer. What's in the hopper at jerryratcliffe.com? What should we be reading? What are you working on? I mean, this man's one of the busiest guys in media over here. Give us a glimpse into the schedule of late, Hootie.
Well, there's a lot of other stuff going on that I've had to kind of blow off because of the basketball. So we're doing
football's been going on.
They're heavily into spring practice.
Yeah.
At some point, I'll start writing some of that. I've done a few interviews that I haven't been able to get to.
But Virginia baseball's lost, 4 straight games?
Yeah. Again, something that's I've had to put on the burner for now. But Immediately today, I'm going to try to finish off these 3 stories left over from yesterday. Talking to Jeff Jones about what Virginia's getting and Ryan Odom. Ryan Odom worked for Jeff for a couple of years. Has known him for years. Talked to Griff Aldrich about Ryan Odom. Just the family aspect, talking to Dave Odom about Ryan and Ryan's comments about his dad. A couple other stories left over from that press conference and the aftermath of it. And we'll be trying to get into spring football and the other sports as the week goes on.
JerryRatcliffe.com, guys. He was at the press conference yesterday. He was at the Jumbotron yesterday. The first media member to have his question delivered or asked. He asked the first question of the media pool to Ryan Odom. ACC Network had Hootie Ratcliffe on screen. All the radio broadcast did. Ryan Odom, pleased to have the question from Jerry Ratcliffe. Speaks to the man's reputation and his character and his trophy case of awards. JerryRatcliffe.com. Judah Wickhauer is behind the camera. Thank you, Judah, for directing and producing the show. The I Love CVille show is up at 12:30 p.m., and we encourage every viewer and listener from 15 states on today's show.
We appreciate you guys.
Yeah, Wahoos far and wide to read JerryRatcliffe.com. So long, everybody, and thank you for joining us.